Welcome back to Think Tech Talks. Here we are on a given Tuesday in what we call Community Matters here on Think Tech, and we're talking about geothermal in Hawaii. And guess what? We have Mililani Trask. She's an activist, maybe a different kind of activist, I would say, these days. And she's the principal of IDG, which is the Innovation Development Group, and also she's also a principal, I can't read my handwriting,
of the Indigenous
Consultants LLC, and they are related.
I'm actually a principal of Indigenous Consultants, and my little company is working in consultation with the Innovations Development Group, which is also a Hawaii-based group.
Okay.
Native Hawaiians.
Now this is really important because, I mean, I think you're at a crossroads, an intersection, if you will, of history, of the way things work in Hawaii, of various, cultural and economic vectors, and here we are together, and I really appreciate you coming down.
Well, I really appreciate your inviting me, Jay, and I think one of the real critical things about what you're doing in Think Tech is keeping the focus on looking at Hawaii's renewable energy future, which I consider to be the most critical topic. I feel that our energy insecurity is what is driving our economic downturn, primarily because of the billions that we have to spend every year to import fossil fuel. So your work is a critical piece of solution finding.
Well, let's put geothermal in perspective, because that's, you've associated yourself with that. You're building, a geothermal element in the energy pie, if you will. So this all started, I mean, it started before that, but it all started, seriously in 2008 with the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. And then we've had, a number of possibilities for clean energy. Really, I mean, I could tick them off. It'd probably take, like 2 hands already. And one of them, is geothermal. And Denny Kaufman, who, just retired from the State House, I remember his view of geothermal was that it was the one. It was the one. We don't want to favor anything, and yet we do. Because, we look at the economics over time, and we see that some work better than others. Some are more efficient, some are cheaper, some have, characteristics that are better than others. And then, some have people that oppose them or support them, and you have to measure all of those things to put the pie together. Geothermal has real obvious positive implications because it is, like, for all practical purposes, forever. And it has a great clean quality to it. And if we had a cable, it could reach all the islands that are on the cable. And a lot of people think that it's the best thing we have over the long term. But it is not distributed. It is a centralized system, and it requires big capital as opposed to the, the residential installer who just puts it on his roof kind of thing. It requires big capital to make a big facility. And, gee, I mean, there's so many considerations, and you dove into this. you had a hearing before the combined committee in the legislature, what was it, 2 years ago now?
Yes, yes.
And I think that's the last time I saw you, actually. And it was really something, and the legislature was listening carefully, I think.
Well, I think that the legislature, for the last several years, has been looking for solutions to the energy crisis. And I think that they have very much been on their own. We do have the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, as you point out, but it hasn't actually put down a timeline template so that we know when we're going to be removing ourselves from fossil fuel dependency. I've been in the geothermal game in Hawaii for actually 30 years. Yeah. 25 years ago, when geothermal moved here, many of us fought it.
In the 90s.
We weren't involved in the planning. The technology, in my estimation, was poor. Yeah. There was significant negative impact to environment. What has changed is that technology has moved forward, and today we have the benefit of looking at our needs and the preliminary assessments in our state for geothermal. They are exciting. We know that we have significant geothermal energy resources on the Big Island, where geothermal has been developed the last 25 years. Preliminary data also shows that there may be significant geothermal for development on the island of Maui. And when I say significant, I'm really talking about the amount of resource needed to generate electricity. But we have significant geothermal resources elsewhere that are very important, including the island of Oahu,
Really?
where preliminary data shows warm spots on Hawaiian homelands in Waimanalo.
Interesting.
And also out in Makaha area. Now these, the Waianae area.
Could it be that these warm spots always go to the Hawaiian homelands areas? It's sort of like a Pele thing, you know, if it's Hawaiian homes, then the geothermal spots develop underneath.
You know, in fact,
it really sounds like
in
that.
fact, Jay, some of the Hawaiian homesteaders are saying just that right now.
Interesting.
That they're very blessed to have low-level resource. Maybe you can't generate electricity with the type of energy resource in Waimanalo, but you certainly could look at it for hothouse agriculture to meet the food needs of the island of Oahu.
Yeah.
We have these resources also in Moku'u on the Big Island. What we need to do,
Where's Moku'u?
Moku'u is a Hawaiian homelands area as you're going out towards Puna.
Okay.
It's there on the left side on the Makai side of the highway.
Okay.
So
not too far from the geothermal site that's there in Puna Geothermal Venture.
But these areas have never really been assessed for potential for meeting Oahu and the state's food needs.
Yeah.
Food security is the other side of the coin of energy security.
Absolutely.
When we look at geothermal, we have, I think, the most reliable and clearly the most affordable alternative.
It's firm, dispatchable power. It's the best power you can have.
You know, earlier you had mentioned that there were those in opposition talking about, well, let's just go with the short-term solution. What can I put on my roof in terms of something like solar? Solar and wind are intermittent energy sources. You only have power when the wind blows or the sun shines. You cannot build a reliable, renewable energy plan for our state based on intermittent energy. The PAPA, the foundation of renewable energy planning for all states, including Hawaii, will be the provision for firm power. And in that respect, we are greatly blessed with the resources both on Maui and, of course, we know on the Big Island, because we have 24/7 needs, emergency needs, hospital needs, communication needs, transportation needs, and these things are the first and most important critical priorities that for the energy plan that we need to put together. So firm power, being that basis, will in fact be the basis upon which we build.
Geothermal has some, concerns too. I mean, one concern that comes to mind is something that was discussed years ago. That is, the geothermal is by definition subject to seismic events. So that if you, invest your whole, system in geothermal, and there is a seismic event in that area, in Puna, say, for example, which is possible, it's a hot area, then it goes down, and it takes you a long time to rebuild it, and in the meantime, you're out of luck. So there are risks also.
There are some risks, and this is why the geothermal development approach is critical. In terms of geothermal assessment, this is one area where technology and science must follow the natural order. You have to first find the area where Pele has allowed geothermal to come to the surface. Then the critical element is testing it. Is this a stable source of geothermal? Is this a source that can be developed, and to what capacity? 50 megawatts, 100, more? All of these things come into play when we take a look at safe development that is affordable. And then, of course, with your baseline data, scientific testing, then you do the critical choice for technology. Geothermal moves globally as well as across the United States.
Sure.
With very little injury, threat, or damage, and that is because it has been approached responsibly, relying upon science.
But don't you agree that if the area is a seismic area, and any geothermal area would be seismic, that that's what yields, the energy.
Yes.
Then you always have that. Therefore, don't you agree too that you have to have an array You have to cover your bets. You have to have multiple possibilities. And if you invest all of your system in one thing that could fall subject to some sort of natural disaster or seismic event, then you might be out of luck. If you have a bunch of possibilities, whatever they are, in addition or including geothermal, then you're better off. Don't you agree?
Well, I think you're right, but let me say this. Seismic activity is not a byproduct of geothermal development. Seismic activity is a byproduct of having a volcano that is active. And when you move to develop that energy resource, you anticipate that you're going to have to deal with those natural causes. In terms of energy planning, the appropriate way, and I very much believe in this, is that we must identify all sources of renewable energy and integrate them into a sensible and affordable plan. The baseline of that, the foundation, is your firm power geothermal. But you would have to merge all other sources, wind, solar. We need to take a look at tidal, surge energy. We have great bounty there that has yet to be assessed.
That's an interesting, that's an interesting thought, because I've had that same thought since 2008. There are all these technologies. There's algae out there. There's all this action, wave action and energy, and Cynthia Thielen has been talking about wave action.
Yes, for quite a long time.
Long time. And, there's OTEC. OTEC certainly in the Big Island. OTEC has been huge as a possibility.
Yes.
But what's happened, you'll agree, is that between 2008 and now, things have sort of settled a little bit. We have, huge installation of PV, better or worse, there it is. It's there, although it's actually slowing down this year, if you hadn't noticed.
Well, our solar energy is in deep trouble.
Okay, we're going to talk about that.
We're seeing a downturn there.
Yes, and we have wind, a certain amount of wind, and I think there's still an appetite for wind. And then we have all these other possibilities. We have biofuel. So the question is, are you saying that we consider everything that has prospect, or at this point, after, 6 years following the energy initiative, that we start to narrow it down and pick, finally, I'm not saying what my opinion is here, but we pick favorites. What do you think? Which way?
I think we have to narrow it down, and the reason why I say this is not really a question of picking favorites, but we have to begin now. We have to make a real, asserted, and good faith effort to move the plan forward. And when you put together your renewable energy plan, you have to have your firm power basis. So a primary priority has to be geothermal development. When you are meeting your baseline needs, your 24/7, then we can integrate other energy resources as we find them, whether solar or wind. We need to develop our ocean resources, but it all fits into and constructs to be a statewide plan, the basis of which is firm power.
Okay, and you and I are going to talk about that plan here. We're going to see if we can pin down some of the corners of that plan.
Well, I think, the disappointment I have in looking at geothermal, and as you mentioned, 2 years ago we came before the legislature and we had great support for it, and I think the legislature themselves was looking for some form of a template that they could follow to begin to really integrate these renewable resources. But we have not seen that become a reality. I'm very concerned with the solar energy downturn, but my real priority is to ensure that we begin by laying a strong foundation. And with geothermal being plentiful and being very affordable for our ratepayers, I can't see that we can delay or tarry much longer. We've waited now going on 13 months to have the RFP for geothermal move forward, make the selection, and it's time to go forward. We are still waiting on that. I want to
find out more about that. That's Mililani Trask. She's been an activist, and she's a principal of Indigenous Consultants, LLC, and through them, IDG, which is Innovation Development Group. We're here on Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell, your host. We're talking about community matters, such as specifically geothermal in Hawaii. We'll take a 1-minute break. We'll be right back. Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell of Think Tech. We have some news for you. In addition to our ThinkTech TV show and our Asia in Review show on Olelo 54, as of January 1st, we're adding Community Matters to play also 2 hours a week. Check out thinktechhawaii.com for the specific times of each of these shows. We hope you enjoy all three. Mahalo, I'm Jay Fine.
Aloha, I'm Maria Kashem of ThinkTech Hawaii, and I want to tell you about our ThinkTech talk shows. If you didn't know it, ThinkTech streams video and audio for all of its shows live on the internet from 2 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon, and we replay them all night long on ustream.tv. Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links. Raise your awareness on ThinkTech. I'm Maria Kashem, and I'll see you there.
We're back, we're live, we're here at ThinkTech Talks, Community Matters. We're talking about geothermal in Hawaii here on a given Tuesday afternoon with Mililani Trask. She's a sovereignty activist and an activist about energy, I think, then and now. She's principal of Indigenous Consultants LLC, which works with Innovation Development Group, and they have been trying to develop geothermal on the Big Island and maybe elsewhere too. And one of the questions, just to get this out of the way, one of the questions that one of our viewers wrote in, and you can do that, you can write in, we send you our program advisories every day, and you can see what we're talking about. And this fellow wrote in and he said, well, what about the cost of delivering geothermal, the equipment and the replacement parts and all that? Geothermal is not without a need for substantial amounts of energy itself, so it's not a perfect clean energy solution. What's your answer to that, Mililani?
My answer is simply that all sources of renewable energy take energy and take money to put up, run, and maintain safely. Geothermal is certainly not the only one. The other problem that we have, and I think we all recognize it, is that Hawaii is simply not a technology producer. Whether it's a windmill, whether it's a panel for solar or a geothermal drill, all of it has to be imported and it has to come at top dollar.
We would love it to be, but you're right. The reality is it's not. Not yet.
No, it isn't.
It could be maybe later.
I think when you look at geothermal, though, it takes a significant amount of money to put it in. However, the value and the return is quickly realized.
Oh, sure.
What we have now on the Big Island paid for itself in 8 years.
Yeah.
It gives us the opportunity to ratchet down the cost to the ratepayer once those initial costs are covered.
Now you said earlier that that back when, I guess this was, my recollection is that Ormat was a contractor for the original operator of the Puna geothermal venture, and then it stopped. There were arguments about it in about the middle '90s, and it stopped. There was a lawsuit by the Sierra Club, I think, and it stopped. And then it was only then that Ormat got involved as the operator itself. And Ormat has been, operating it ever since.
True Geothermal was the first company that came
that
in
was
in
before
partnership
Ormat,
with Campbell Estate.
Yes.
They had significant problems.
Yes.
And the lawsuit was actually brought by Native Hawaiians over the cultural issue. It went to the Supreme Court. Hawaiians won a stunning victory, but they didn't shut down geothermal development.
Yeah.
And since that time, we have not really seen a renewed effort to address
there was a period of time where it was shut down.
Yes, there was, and actually it went through the court system up to the Supreme Court. The state old
Supreme
true
Court?
was was shut down.
The state Supreme Court? Or
yes,
okay.
It was a state Supreme Court decision that protected Hawaiian rights to gather and worship, and made clear that when geothermal is developed, you must protect the cultural resources.
Okay, but you mentioned earlier
shut down geothermal development.
That there was technological problems. That's what I'm getting at.
Yes.
So what was the technological problem in those days?
To be honest with you, Jay, the technology they brought in 30 years ago was old, cheap, filthy, and we should have had better.
This is the sulfur steam coming up?
Yes, and when that old technology was developed, they didn't have the technology to put scrubbers into the flume to make sure that if there was a venting, we'd pull out the chemicals.
Yeah.
The developments that have occurred in geothermal the last 30 years, I always compare in Hawaii to our phone service. 30 years ago in Hawaii, we were just leaving the dial phone, going to the press button phone. Today, look at what we have. Geothermal has gone through the same change.
So is what's going on in Puna Geothermal Venture right now that old technology, or is it new technology?
It is old technology that has been patched and fixed to try to upgrade it, but of course you will never get the efficiency, you will never get the production of the new technology that is available now.
But you don't have those fumes coming out, so it does scrub the fumes out now.
The reason why we have significant environmental concerns is because we do continue to have those venting problems.
So you wouldn't have trouble breathing
technology
in the area or anything like that? You wouldn't have gases that are offensive? Because
to my knowledge, there's not been any of that problem for many years, but geothermal development requires that you always have the monitors on site, that you check them daily. This is part of doing business. You have to be a responsible producer.
I remember reading not too long ago that, you know, there's new technology now for geothermal, including technology on ORMAT installations elsewhere, because ORMAT is the biggest one in the world, as I know. And, you know, if you were going to build a brand new plant now, or refurbish an old one, you would use this new technology. You would start with the new technology.
Absolutely not. The first way to approach it is to do your scientific testing. Now there's maybe 125 geothermal producers in the world, and significant technology has been developed based on the nature of the resource. If the resource is cool at a very deep level, you're going to be choosing a different technology than if you have a very hot technology at the surface. For that type of a resource, which we do have, you want to look at things like the Sumitomo and Fuji turbines that were really created to produce in areas that are very hot.
Cool. I think that's probably what ORMAT would do too.
ORMAT owns their own technology, and ORMAT pushes their technology rather than work and interface with the other producers.
Do they manufacture their
They
equipment?
certainly do, and they have it patented. This is why the approach being taken by the IDG is, I think, the most responsible approach.
What is that?
You understand your resource and you match the technology to the dictates of the resource, rather than making a joint venture with a partner who's owning and pushing one technology that may not be the best technology, the safest, the cleanest technology for our resource.
Let's go to IDG for a minute. Since that you know, important day in the legislature 2 years ago, you know, has IDG established what kind of technology it would put in a facility, for example, in Puna or elsewhere in the Big Island where there happens to be geothermal?
IDG and others, I think, that are in competition have assessed all of the baseline data. We have pushed forward to the point where we now have the RFP posted.
Do you know the technology that you would use?
No company, including IDG, is going to commence testing without knowing that they have the approval of the RFP.
So you have to, first you have to get approval of the RFP, then you have to do the testing, and then when you know what you have, then you go out and you make a choice on technology.
That's correct. We have already begun discussions, and so have others in competition, talking to the geothermal technology producers, as well as bringing in science partners. You know, we're working with Sinclair Knight, GNS, AECOM, and others who have preliminary data. But the real critical data needs to be gleaned through surface and subsurface testing, and that can only be done after the RFP is awarded and the appropriate permits are received by the state.
Where would you test? Where, you know, the RFP is there, and I want to talk about that, but what area does it address? Where would this happen?
Well, preliminary data shows the East Rift Zone on the Big Island, of course. We also know that
Puna.
That is the entire East Rift Zone. Puna is a very small part of it. But we're looking at the entire East Rift Zone there, and I would say another interesting area there is the Big Crack. On the island of Maui, they know it will be upwards Mauka of the Ulupalakua Ranch area, where we have significant Hawaiian homelands and state lands.
Maui.
Yes.
Yes, and the homelands are right there, just below the ranch.
That's right, and so is the DLNR lands. These are opportunities for the state to develop its own public energy resource for the public. Lower level resources now on the Big Island. We also know a few on Oahu. Can we do hothouse agriculture? We will only know when that testing is done.
That would be great to do that.
This is why we have really pushed forward, and we're really prevailing on the PUC and HECO to make that decision so that we can move forward.
Okay, but going back to, you know, the RFP, does the RFP identify an area? Have you identified an area?
No,
do you
the
have
RFP,
control of land?
We do have land, and we're working not only in Puna, but we have other private landowners that are interested. The DLNR has been very open the last several years that they consider that the state lands themselves may be viable, and we're very interested.
Sure, it's a source of revenue for the state. It'd be wonderful. The state makes money, everybody wins. No?
And we're also working with Hawaiian Homelands. There's several Hawaiian Homestead Associations on Maui, on the Big Island, and even right here in Waimanalo that have come forward saying that they want their lands to be looked at and assessed for geothermal capacity.
But usually when you make an RFP, and we can talk about that, you identify one area. So is there an area that's your favorite area?
No, I mean, the HECO RFP did not do that. The HECO RFP posted a general need for 50 megawatts on the Big Island. And that is where they left it. So it's really based on preliminary data, what we've gathered to date, and everyone's best guess, but unless we can move forward with that testing,
okay, let's talk about that. Okay, so you put in something. The RFP was from HECO or HELCO?
The RFP was posted by HELCO through the PUC, and I
where
think,
is it now? What's the status right now?
Well, when the request for interest was first posted nearly a couple of years ago, 21 international and national companies responded. By the time the RFP was posted a year ago, only 5 or 6 remained of interest, and I think it's because the rest were simply not going to be able to accommodate the delay and the problems with development in the state of Hawaii. It is the old story. It's the old story that has killed many renewable energy initiatives.
They're interested, but then they drop out because they see it's going to take too long.
Well, they're holding capital, millions of dollars. They've got science partners, tech partners, and renewable energy and geothermal is moving across the world and across the U.S. Why wait when you have that kind of a pressing energy need?
Where is it right now, though?
Well, we have 5 or 6 in contention. All responded to the HECO, and let me say that their RFP was shocking when it came out. I spoke with some folks from Calpine.
Why?
Take a look at what New Mexico and other states in the continent are doing. They post an RFP, it's 20 pages long. It goes on the internet. The first response is on forms that goes in, it's assessed within 2 weeks. In Hawaii, the HECO RFP was 300 pages long. It necessitated a 1,000-page response that cost several $100,000. We're still waiting, going on a year now. That's the thing about not having a streamlined process.
Was finalized and distributed a year ago.
The responses came in. We were anticipating a selection would be made before October. Then HECO came back asking for the bidders to refresh their bids. That took several more weeks. Then we waited for a decision to be made at the end of November. We were then told we'd wait till the end of December. The last statement was sometime in the new year.
This month, December.
That's correct.
So we're down to the short strokes here, it sounds like.
Well, when you go back and read the actual statement from HECO, they're saying that it will not be before the end of the year. They're hoping to expedite it with the coming year. I'm very disheartened by that because it's not really a commitment on the part of HECO to make a decision.
So let me understand. First HECO puts in a proposed RFP with the PUC. How long did it take for that to get approved?
You know, that took, the entire process was about 9 months. You're going back to you're going back to 2012 there.
Okay, and then once it's approved, then it goes out to prospective people who would respond.
Then you have several months for those of interest to make their response, and as I told you, 1,000 pages had to be pulled together at great cost. That was submitted in total. All parties submitted several months ago, and we were told that they would review it and make a selection in November. We never saw that, and we will not see it in December.
So what's happened is there's like half a dozen responders, just like IDG is one of them.
Yes.
All would like to do geothermal. and they have all, by now they have all put their bids in, so to speak. They've been asked to, quote, refresh the bids, and all the refresh is in now?
All of it is in,
Okay,
and
so
weeks
now
have
it's up
gone
to
by for
HECO to make a
assessment.
choice.
Yes, it is.
When HECO makes a choice, the whole, this is really, you know, time consuming. Then HECO makes a choice, it goes back to the PUC, and then the PUC approves the choice. Am I right?
And there will be, of course, public input, but we're not sure whether HECO will choose one for a 50 megawatt plant, or whether they're going to bifurcate it and ask for two 25 megawatt plants. This has been something that has been up in the air since day one.
What
so
do you recommend?
I really can't. When you look at geothermal, economies of scale comes into play. Your best price is going to be your 50 megawatt plant. The other thing that I favor in terms of geothermal development is to keep it to 50 megawatts or larger, for the very reason that you don't want to proliferate development all over the island. It is better to find the best source, put your resources there, and then look at transmitting the energy to the areas of need. But you know, under the IDG model, we very much support the community benefit approach so that we can ensure, for instance, in Puna, here's an area that is zoned agriculture. We are losing our farming land on the Big Island because of cost. For 25 years, we'd had the opportunity to do hothouse agriculture there.
So did you provide for a community benefits package in your RFP
We
response?
certainly did, and we...
Did everyone?
I can't really tell you that because, as you know, the process is quite secretive. We're not allowed to see. But in our proposal, we certainly did, and we're relying upon our knowledge and our experience for the last 13, 14 years in New Zealand, where geothermal not only provides base power, but it's funding all types of industrial uses in the vicinity, agricultural hothouses, aquaculture, the drying of food, the marketing of timber. These are industries we have on the Big Island and in our state. So geothermal brings significant benefit.
This is Mililani Trask. She's an activist, both in sovereignty and energy, I would say. She's the principal of Indigenous Consultants, LLC, which works with Innovative Development Group, IDG, which is an energy company. We're here on Think Tech Talks talking about community matters. That's a double entendre. I'm talking about geothermal in Hawaii. We'll be right back after this short break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle in COOKE, Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Hori. Thanks so much for joining us on Think Tech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Guess what? We're back. We're live. We're Think Tech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell, your host of Community Matters, a double entendre. I'm talking about geothermal in Hawaii with Mililani Trask, a sovereignty and an energy activist who is activist in, well, she's active. What can I say? She's really active. And she's the principal of Indigenous Consultants, LLC, which in turn consults with IDG, which is Innovative Development Group, which is a company that wants to build a geothermal plant on the Big Island. So here we are, and we have the, all the paperwork has been submitted. The Hawaiian Electric, and I guess HELCO, Hawaii Electric Light Company, is considering this. It won't be by the end of the year. It'll probably be sometime next year, hopefully soon. And it will make a choice, right? Will it choose just one out of these half a dozen applicants? What will happen?
Well, we're hoping that they will choose one or two. This is what they've indicated. It will either be one producer to produce a 50 megawatt plant, or they will break it into two
and give
components.
25 to one and 25 to the other.
Yes.
And they can do that.
Yes, they've talked about doing that. We haven't really seen comment yet at this time from the PUC, but those are the two options, I think.
Okay. Then the PUC, now, there's an issue about how long it takes to finish this. So once Hawaiian Electric and Hawaiian Electric Light Company make this decision about what they want to do with these responses, then its inclination, so to speak, would go to the PUC for approval, and that takes a fair amount of time too. That nothing happens quickly. Your 2 weeks in New Zealand is that's like a pipe train. It doesn't happen that quick. So then we wait for that. In the meantime, all these applicants have to hold their capital together, hold their scientists together. They're in a conundrum over whether to specifically plan. They can't start testing because that would be economically
There's a significant
risky.
detriment to all of the companies, including IDG, that have come forward to facilitate this process. It's capital, it's science, it's technology. Opportunities are evolving elsewhere, and there really is a great need. There's an energy crisis globally that needs to be addressed. So it's a great disservice to private sector, not to mention what it is doing to our state economy and to the ratepayers in our state. We're paying over 40 cents a kilowatt hour right now on the Big Island. We're seeing families' homes burn down because they've lost electricity and they're trying to cook with a camp stove.
Boy,
so we've got a crisis. We need to address it, and immediately.
Yeah. So now, if your response, as refreshed, is accepted and approved by the PUC, what will happen then? What's the nature of the project that you I guess it's 150 megawatt plant in one location. Just tell us what that would be like. I mean, that's not confidential, is it?
Well, no, I think the process for geothermal development is quite well known. You commence with all of the various testing that you do. Some of it is subsurface. You can do flyovers, temperature changes. Eventually, you narrow it down and you do your test bores drilling to see what is the nature of the resource, what is the nature of the pressure there. Then you make your selection and begin to work with your tech partners to look not only at the development, but how you will transmit it to the consumer. I think in all of these steps, you involve the public. You have to go through public hearings to get permitting, but also the PUC and the independent observer need to also be involved in it. So it's a process that will take several months. But in that process, I think we will glean not only information for this first product, for this first production unit, but to help us to assess statewide where our energy resource is for future planning, because there are many uses for geothermal.
As you mentioned,
even
the
growing
greenhouse.
food right here on Oahu. These are important byproducts that may not result in a 50 megawatt plant, but these needs will be addressed by the data and the information that we get. And of course, we've already begun working with Don Thomas, the Center for Active Volcanoes up on Big Island. They're testing.
He was at the wrong end of the controversy in the 90s, wasn't he? Poor Don.
I have a lot of respect for that guy because he's moving forward. And right now, with his help, we already are seeing the first project using geothermal to develop hydrogen to run the buses.
I want to talk to you about that. God, we got miles to go
Hydrogen comes right out of geothermal, a byproduct that can replace fossil fuels in our cars. You can't get that with wind or with OTEC, but you can do it with hydrogen, and that is already moving on the Big Island.
HNEI, Hawaii Natural Energy Institute, is actually doing some research at Puna Geothermal Venture to see if they can convert the geothermal into hydrogen and do it economically, and then move hydrogen around in tanks between the islands. I mean, this is
something that has already actually been perfected, and it's coming online elsewhere. There's been some great interest on the part of some of the Canadian companies who have already come down. They are hydrogen developers. The exciting thing about it is that as a byproduct of geothermal, it gives us the opportunity. Geothermal address the electricity needs with the geothermal byproduct of hydrogen, replace the fossil fuel need in our cars. So, you can kill two birds with one stone when you understand geothermal production in that way. If we only limit our thinking to the plant for transmission by HECO, we're not being responsible to look at other ways, other applications of geothermal.
Everybody seems to say that geothermal, in any significant degree, on the volume, because 100 altogether is a lot of megawatts for the Big Island. That's a big part of its peak load. So everybody seems to say need to have a cable there to make it worthwhile. And the cable, presumably, and the technologies may not be ripe right now, but the cable would go under the channel and to Maui, and then from Maui under the second cable to Oahu, and we share 3 islands anyway. And without the cable, we have a problem because we have more geothermal, than we can use in the, what do you call it, in the grid of the Big Island. What's your feeling about the cable? I mean, do you agree that there should be a cable, that geothermal is ultimately dependent on having an undersea cable?
I think that we have significant geothermal resources already on the island of Maui and the Big Island. The first commitment of our state needs to be to seek ways to render each island energy
separate, distributed, independent.
So that's correct. So let us first look at safe development of geothermal to meet the needs of Big Island and Maui, and thereafter to assess the needs of other islands, including Oahu, for additional energy.
So you would not build a cable in with the project right now?
No, not at all. And in fact, a cable project for geothermal is a separate project from the development of a 50-megawatt plant on the Big Island.
You don't feel that we need a cable for this particular RFP of 50?
The use of a cable could be something that could be applied to the Big Island. For example, if geothermal is developed in the East Rift Zone, but there is a big need for electricity over in Kona on the west side, what would make sense? 12 years of digging a trench across the island, or 1 day of running a cable by ocean right around the island to Kona? That way your construction for your terminals will be in the East Rift Zone and also in Kona. Move forward with that. I'm not
still
saying
one island.
That is correct. So you may have cable technology that could be used on one island. But before we look at a $4 billion debt for cabling from the Big Island or Maui to Oahu, we need to assess what other options there are. And when it came to the cable for Molokai and Maui, I definitely did not support that. A $4 billion price tag when we know that we have enough wind on Molokai and Lanai right now to render them energy self-sufficient without the cable. If we take an island approach rather than the continental approach which we're following, I think we'd be better off.
Okay, no need for a statewide grid in your view?
I think that a statewide grid is the appropriate way that you develop energy on the continents. Nowhere in the world, other than Hawaii, are they trying to force a continental model on a string of islands. That could only mean one thing: billions of dollars of cables linking all the islands. Why would we do that with Lanai and Molokai when they have significant wind? It's already been tested.
What about hydrogen? Seems to me that you could put, I mean, if it could be done economically, that is, you could put the hydrogen in containers and move them to other islands.
Absolutely,
to use
very
them there.
feasible.
And
very feasible.
For that matter, elsewhere, anywhere in the world, and you could sell hydrogen, assuming the recipient place had the technology to use the hydrogen.
Yes, and you know that there have already been some folks who are saying that the best way to go with geothermal on the Big Island is to develop a 1,000-megawatt plant and ship all the hydrogen over to China.
I don't think they worked out the economics on that yet.
The thing is that under our development model, the IDG model, we look to the smaller development to meet the needs of the community. And here we have to look at our island needs. How can we bring the Big Island and Maui to 100% energy independence? And when we can demonstrate to our state that we can do that safely, then we can ask them to consider cabling. Right now, I think that the two are very separate.
So you think the geothermal thing ought to be established first, and then look at cable.
Yes, I think so. If you can't show that you can produce 50 megawatts safely for the community of the Big Island, how can you expect anyone to support a 500 megawatt
But aren't they talking about wind
development?
also? I mean, Big Island has lots of wind, so does Maui have a lot of wind. Why couldn't we do cable? Forget about geothermal for now. Just wind, and use a cable for wind only.
Well, do you see it happening?
I don't know.
I don't.
Can I tell you in a few months?
We had some heroic effort made by a company out there in Waimea. They spent millions. Unfortunately, they could never get a PPA or an RFP awarded. They went into bankruptcy. Many, many opportunities have been lost because of that very problem.
One more. We only have 5 minutes left. I'm sorry. We could spend a lot more time. There's a great discussion here, Mililani. The Hawaiian heritage, the Hawaiian culture, the Hawaiian, I don't know, sovereignty maybe not exactly the right word, but you know, the Hawaiian thing, if you will, to use a broad term. What is the position of that, the connection of that in IDG, that is the Innovative Development Group, and in your RFP and in your vision? Because, you know, you were an activist.
This is really my area of oversight, and this is what Indigenous Consultants does. This is what I've done for the last 15, 16 years working with Maori and New Zealand. One of the things we learned from our Supreme Court case is that our people have the right to worship. Our people have the right to participate.
Back in the 90s.
Yes, in development and to benefit from it. But we also learned that we need to put together processes and procedures to protect cultural resources while we develop natural resources. We have seen now that there are approaches that can be applied, and we're doing it quite successfully with Maori. Involve your community. Don't try to ignore the restrictive laws we had. We wrote Chapter 343. You have to not only do your archaeological survey, but you need to survey and protect every cultural resource, not just those that are man-made archaeological resources, but those that are natural. The flowers we pick for lepo'o, the pigs that are hunted for food on the table. All of these native uses can be integrated with geothermal if you work with your community.
That's what I'm asking. You know, what is the integration? What is the integration of the cultural approach in IDG? What is the integration of the cultural approach in the in your response to the RFP? What is the cultural integration into the way you see this unfolding? You know, if, for example, your response
is part of our culture.
Yes.
And we have to remember that it was King Kalakaua and the monarchy that moved to develop geothermal, not ORMAT, and also that it is a sacred resource. So you honor that tradition, you provide for it and recognize it. Where there are native gatherers... Did you provide
for it in your response to the RFP?
Not only did we provide for it, but we showed them the template step-by-step model. Why you have to hire cultural monitors to be online. Why you have to work with your community to ensure that resources that come up, whether they're la'au lapa'au, medicinals, or something that you find that's a sacred object, what is your plan to curate, to protect that? But that is not the only thing that we owe the Hawaiian community. We owe them energy that is reliable at a fair price. We owe them the ability
everybody should have that, don't you think?
Well, I think in terms of the development of Tutupele's resources, there is a particular obligation to do so in a way that provides for the forest and that meets other needs of the people, just as were met in traditional times. The need for food,
okay, but I'm looking for the difference, and I think I hear you saying that the other people who have responded to the RFP, the other bidders, if you will, are not as focused on the cultural integration as IDG is focused on the cultural integration.
That's true, and they haven't begun in the same way. Over 2 years ago, IDG went out to every community on the Big Island. We passed out a survey. We polled them. What kind of community benefit would you like to see? What do you think is important in protecting cultural resources? You know, when you sit on a panel with people like the Kanaka'oles, Kekuhi Kanaka'ole, and bring that out, you're really engaging with people. Also to let them know that when we go forward, it's not just foreign engineers or others that get a job. You have to hire those cultural monitors. You have to give them the employment, trust them to work with you, to find burials if they are there, to find and protect the resources. These are things that you have to do, and this is why we begin with what is called cultural mapping. We begin by identifying all cultural resources, mapping them before the project footprint goes down.
Are you saying that the integration of the cultural approach, as you have just described it, makes your response, your application, your bid, so to speak, the one that must be accepted because the others do not include that?
My guess is that they don't include it, not having read them all.
No, I would guess
but
that.
it is something that I think is a prerequisite here in Hawaii, given the history of litigation and the sacredness of the resource that we're dealing with. I cannot see that HECO or the PUC could move forward with developing a sacred resource without addressing this. But again,
Are you saying that the others would not be entitled to have their applications granted?
No, I'm saying that I'd like to see some evidence of where the others are going. For instance, the Innovation Development Group has already brought online, we've worked for many years with Kumuhula Sai Bridges because of his extensive knowledge in this area. We've been out there working with the community, working with them in polls for nearly 2 years. We didn't see anybody else out there showing that kind of concern or making that kind of commitment. You know, you can have all kind of tech and science partners from all over the world, but the question is, where's your cultural partner? Where's your kumuhula? Have you been working with the native people?
This is going to be interesting. You know, we have so many vectors, and this is clearly one of the vectors. And it really will be involved one way or the other in the way things go forward.
And remember, this is a resource that belongs to the public and the native. It is a trust resource, an asset of the public trust, so it has to be developed in Hawaii under those trust principles. It has to honor our culture as well as the public need for energy.
So it's an interesting intersection because one would think that clean energy is just a matter of science, just a matter of economics, delivering non-fossil fuel energy to the community, but it puts another layer of complexity on it.
Because for us it is a sacred resource and it must be developed in a way that is respectful of culture, as well as one that will bring the need, that will nurture the children of Hawaii, those that are public and those that are not.
For now, we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time. Mililani Trask, Hawaiian sovereignty activist and energy activist, principal of Indigenous Consultants LLC, which works with Innovative Development Group, IDG, which is an energy company trying to do development of geothermal, at least on the Big Island. Here at Think Tech Talks, in our show about community matters involving geothermal in Hawaii. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me,
Mililani Trask. Aloha.